remember her talking about her brothers all going away, because there were 2 other brothers as well. They didn't all go to war, and I don't remember the name of them, but one of them, that would start her talking about the war, she was telling about her brother, and they were fooling around in the house, and he fell down behind a bed, and it had a wire mattress, and someone pulled him up from behind the bed, and he cut his leg open and got gangrene and died. And, you know, for the family that was really hard because they had already lost the 4 boys at war. Tahu said when he was on the Aparima, she was really happy because she said he's going on the Aparima and that'll bring him back, but it didn't. He died. And William Gray. She said, you know, our mum never cried. She never cried when the boys didn't come home. But what she did do was when they were missing and she heard, she went up to what today is called Moore's Reserve or Puki Matawai, and across to a big balancing rock that's called Kurahopo, and she did karakia up at that rock. So, you know, when we grew up, we were showed those places and so on. So, and he didn't talk a lot about war, but he did, and he sometimes, and he always went to the RSA parades, you know, Anzac Day. But just occasionally he would say something about it, about how awful it was, like in the desert. And yeah, because he went first to Egypt, and then. Yeah, he talked about like how it was lucky that anybody even came home. He even was a wee bit racist, because the impact of the fighting in the desert, you know, was so strong that he distrusted anyone that he saw as being, you know, from those countries. You know, he could not forgive them. And he used to talk about how sneaky it was, you know, the warfare that happened there was nasty and sneaky. So, you know, and he talked about going over and coming back on the ship. He was cooking or helping, you know, to cook. Coming home, they'd struck bad weather somewhere, not in New Zealand waters. And they'd cooked rice, and the bad seas, the big seas, and the weather just blew the glass out of the portholes, and it all fell in the big things of rice, and they were made to pick the rice out and serve it to the men, you know. Yeah, and he talked about being wounded, and his postcards you know, are great because they've got all these things in it, like at which place he's at and who he's with, and you know, he contracted rheumatic fever as well while he was there, and that sort of certainly hit him. It brought it home, didn't they? And his wounds. So he would talk about where that happened, how it happened, and how many of his mates he saw, you know, dying and so on. He went to France. It talks about Turkey, France, Egypt. Yeah, we don't know where they are.
They've disappeared.
They were always there because we were allowed to get them out and look at them. And Tahu talked about them more than Paua, you know, if we got them out. Yeah. He actually didn't really want to sit there and talk about them. Uncle John, yeah. I don't know when he died. You know, he was just a figure that I didn't sort of place at the time that this was Uncle John, Tahu's brother. Oh, yeah. And for a time he was out on the lighthouse at Raratoka, or Centre Island. But, you know, we weren't, Mum was still young. And so and he married, I just knew her as Auntie Myrtle, but then I knew her daughter, you know, as she grew up, yeah. Tahu obviously was quite close to John, you know, maybe because he came home. You know, but I believe that he didn't share a lot, you know, about his experiences. He was badly wounded and so on, and I think it affected him. She said he was a very different man when he came back. Our Poa did the mail run out to the island, and he would never take our Tahu, like our mum. He would never take her. She wasn't allowed to go, and she used to be really, a bit ho-ha about it because her cousin, she was allowed to go, but not mum. And she got right through her age when she had her own grandchildren growing up and so on, before she found out the reason why she wasn't allowed to go was because she was too precious. She was an only child, and he didn't really want her, to come to any risk. She talked a lot about what they did before they went to war, because they were all active and fit, and they had, the two rivers that come into the estuary, the Pautakino and the Aparima, and so they used to swim from there right down to the mouth of the river and have races to see who could get there first, or rowboats and skiffs and things like that, and my Poa did it with them, so there was quite a bit of rivalry between those families at that point who weren't related. It was only after, Poa come back from the war that he married into that hunter line. But I don't know how they lasted the length of time they did. Like, John was there 4 years and came home alive, all but wounded and so on. And Poa was there over 3 years. When she was talking about the war and her brothers and so on, she did talk about them, and she used to call them the death pennies. You know what I mean? The plaques.
Oh,
get them out. Each known whānau, family was sent one at some later stage to commemorate who fell. There's a postcard of a beach. It's in England. It might have been, and he said, it's a lovely place. It's called whatever he says, and everyone thinks it's beautiful, and they've got what they call a beach. He said it's really just he's a bit critical about what it really is. When the tide goes out, he says there's a bit of sort of gravel and muck like our mud flats at home. He said they should see a real beach. I think the mum must have been extremely strong, because we didn't hear about how Poa Hunter felt about it. Tahu never talked about that. She just talked about her mother, not crying or getting more news and wondering, waiting and not hearing and things like that. But she didn't say how her father felt about it.